Arinze Okafor's mornings looked like music videos. Convoy cars gleaming under the Lagos sun, sunglasses on, phone buzzing with club invites and business gossip. He was the only son of Chief Damien Okafor, a man whose name could tilt markets. At 24, Arinze had a penthouse in Victoria Island, a wardrobe full of designer suits he barely wore, and a team paid to say yes. He mistook attention for respect and money for wisdom. Traffic stalled on 3rd Mainland Bridge. Street hawkers flowed between cars, balancing trays of gala, plantain chips, and chilled sachet water. A woman in a faded wrapper stepped toward his window, hope in her eyes. Ogre, pure water. Arinze rolled the glass down halfway, lips curling. Do I look thirsty to you? He waved her away with a bored flick, then laughed loud enough for his friends in the back seat to hear. When her tray knocked the side mirror by accident, he snapped. Are you blind? He slapped the pack from her hand. Water scattered across the asphalt like spilled tears. The woman flinched, whispered God sees, and moved on. Arinze leaned back, pleased with himself. Somewhere under that sun, a wound opened that money could not bandage. Her name was Neka. Before the city called her Mama Pure Water, she was a girl who sang alto in her church choir in Enugu. She had once loved a young man with bright plans and a dangerous fear of disappointing his rich father. A pregnancy, a promise, and a night of threats. Then the child was taken, and the girl was told to disappear. Life turned into day work and night tears. Years later, Lagos gave her a place to stand, the white line between moving cars. She talked to God as she walked, fingers brushing a small brass locket at her chest. Inside was a tiny photo from the hospital. Just a newborn hand. She kept selling water because it let her watch faces. She searched for eyes that might look like hers and a mouth shaped like his. The morning on the bridge, when the convoy stopped, she saw a man with a jaw she knew from a mirror and a smile too sharp for his age. She stepped forward, voice steady. Water. The slap of words and the fall of the sachets hit her like storm rain, yet the face stayed in her mind. She whispered, Lord, if that is him, show me how to forgive before I ever ask to be known. A passenger in the car behind filmed the scene. By noon, the clip sat on every gossip page in the city. Billionaire brat bullies elderly hawker, the captions said. Arinze shrugged it off. He posted a photo from a private brunch, wrote, haters will hate, and added a smirking emoji. Likes poured in. The internet moved fast. He believed storms end when you close the curtains. But reputations rot quietly at first. A client in London postponed a call. A club promoter pushed him down the invite list. His father sent a brief text, call me. When they finally spoke, Chief Damien said, we do not disgrace people. Apologize. Arinze laughed. To who? A random hawker. Not to who, to what you are becoming, the chief replied. The line went quiet. That night, the video replayed in Arinze's head, uninvited. The sound that haunted him wasn't his own voice, it was the woman's calm God sees. He told himself it was nothing, then poured another drink. But something in him had begun to shiver, the way glass shivers a second before it cracks. The Okafor home in Ikoyi carried old money on its marble floors. Paintings lined the halls. Staff moved like clockwork. At dinner, Chief Damien's eyes were tired. We're finalizing the deep-sea port logistics deal this month. Keep your name clean. Arinze rolled a cufflink. My name is Gold. His aunt, elegant and watchful, smiled thinly. Gold burns under the wrong fire. Her son, Checker, managed several operations for the family company. He was polite, efficient, and always in the room when power exchanged hands. After dinner, the chief called Arinze into the study. Listen to me. Don't waste your life performing wealth. Learn to build it. He slid a folder across the desk. Tomorrow, sit with the compliance team. Understand our risk exposure. Arinze accepted the folder without opening it. He had never failed at anything that money could fix. Outside the study, he bumped into Checker, who patted his shoulder and said, if you ever want help reading those reports, I've got you. Please, Arinze smirked. Numbers kneel for me. Checker's smile didn't reach his eyes. In a house full of glass, someone had started throwing stones. The call woke him at 5 a.m. Sir, EFCC is at the office. The words tumbled: paper trails, suspicious transfers, offshore accounts. By 9 a.m., headlines named an Okafor executive in a money laundering probe. By noon, the internet replaced the Hawker clip with something sharper: billionaire son signed approvals above his limit. Arinze rushed to the island office, only to find men in jackets packing documents. His access card failed at the door. Security eyes avoided his. He called Chaka. No answer. He called his father. Handle yourself, the chief said grimly, and ended the call. Credit cards began to bounce. A seller refused to release a limited edition watch because the transfer delayed. Even his favorite club acted new at the entrance. Guest list is full tonight, sir. He stood there, air thick with perfume and embarrassment, understanding for the first time that money was louder when it left than when it came. At home, he tried to log into his accounts. Frozen. The news channels played old images of him stepping out of cars. The same feeds showed hawkers under the bridge, laughing through hard days. The city felt colder. Pride, once a coat, started to itch like a rash. By the third day, friends who used to arrive without knocking stopped replying. A group chat that once buzzed with travel plans turned into a graveyard of blue ticks. His penthouse felt like a museum to a life that had stepped out. He drove alone, no convoy, along Ozumbambadiwe, watching water slap the shore. He pulled over where hawkers gathered and stepped out, cap pulled low. The same woman from the video approached a different car, tray steady. He watched her without knowing why, shame flaring like heat. A boy selling plantain chips recognized him. Ogre viral, the boy laughed. Others turned. Phones rose. Faces sharpened. Arinze raised both hands, trying to smile. I'm just passing. Keep passing, someone muttered. Another hawker shouted, buy first. A sachet hit his chest. Laughter followed. The woman, Neka, looked over, eyes unreadable. She did not laugh. She stepped away from the crowd, adjusting her locket. He climbed back into his car, heart thudding. For the first time, the city felt bigger than his surname. He pressed his forehead to the steering wheel and let the engine idle while he counted his breaths like coins he could not spend. That night, a storm broke. Power flickered. He took a walk to clear his head, hoodie on, hands in pockets. At a dim corner near the market, two men stepped out. Big man, one said, your watch. He hesitated, and the decision cost him. A punch, a shove, a fall. The watch left his wrist in a flash of steel. He tasted metal and dust. The men vanished into rain. He lay there stupid with pain, considering whether to shout or to sleep. A shadow leaned over him. Get up, a woman said. The voice was firm, familiar. She tugged him to a sitting position, checked his pupils with quick, careful hands, and pulled him under a shed. Hold this, she said, pressing a dry cloth to his cheek. It was her. The hawker. She didn't scold. She didn't film. She made a small fire from scrap wood, warmed water, and cleaned his cut. Can you stand? He tried. His body said no. Then you won't sleep on the ground, she said. Come. They walked in slow steps, her hand under his elbow, rain hitting tin roofs like drums. Pride hung back while need took the front seat. Her room sat behind the market, a single window, a mat, a kettle, a bowl of gari. She eased him down. You'll be fine, she said. The head will swell and calm. He studied the neatness, clothes folded into a crate, Bible on a stool, the locket glinting at her throat. She boiled water, poured it over leaves, and handed him tea. He expected questions. Cameras. Conditions. None came. Why help me? He muttered. Because you needed it, she said simply. Rest. He slept harder than he had in years. In the morning, he woke to her quiet humming and the smell of fried akara. Eat, she said, slipping her tray strap over her head. I'm going to work. I can't stay here, he said, trying to stand. The room tilted. You can, until your head stops spinning, she answered. Lock the door from inside. Return key under the mat. He watched her shoulders as she left, steady, unhurried. He looked around, at how little she had and how much care had filled it. He ate the akara, not because it was free, but because it felt like a language that didn't need words. By afternoon, he could walk. He cleaned the bowl he'd used, folded the mat, and swept the small floor. He left some cash on the stool, then hesitated and took half back. It felt wrong to pay for kindness like a bill. Outside, the market throbbed. He saw her under the sun, tray high, smile small but real. Without thinking, he stepped to her side. "Let me carry for a bit," he said. She looked at him for a long second. "If you drop it, you pay for all," she said, a spark of humor in her eye. He lifted the tray and felt the weight, the bottles, the balance, the pressure of moving feet and moving cars. His shoulders burned within minutes. Children laughed at the sight of Mr. Viral selling water. He flushed, then saw how quick coins appeared when you looked people in the eye and said, "Thank you." The job wasn't only weight, it was patience, timing, reputation built one small transaction at a time. When he handed the tray back, he was sweating. She didn't praise or tease. She just said, "You tried." Somehow, those two words settled warmer than all the applause he used to buy with champagne. He started coming by, first from guilt, then from something softer. He carried crates, learned which drivers tipped and which ones pinched sachets. He watched her count money in tens and fives, tucking each note into a cloth purse. "Your name?" he asked one afternoon. "People here call me Mama Neen," she said. "And before here?" She smiled without answering. "What do they call you in your own place?" He almost said prince, boss, young chief, the silly titles friends threw at him. "Arinze," he said finally. She nodded. "Arinze means thanks to God." He laughed once. "I'm working on that part." As days passed, he noticed small things, the way she gave extra water to pregnant women, how she kept a list of debts and never shamed anyone who owed. He discovered that respect grew like palm trees, slow, deep-rooted, and useful in heat. At night, he returned to his empty penthouse but stopped turning on all the lights. He ate simple meals and slept earlier. When the internet mocked his new friendship, he put his phone face down. He was learning to hear another voice, quiet and stubborn, that said, "Stay." One noon, heat fierce as iron, a motorbike clipped him and tore his sleeve. Mama Neen reached for his arm. A small crescent-shaped birthmark near his shoulder stared back at her. Her breath caught. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Yes," she said too quickly. Her fingers trembled as she released his arm. Memory rose like smoke, labor pain, the midwife's hands, a tiny crescent mark she had kissed before they took the child away. "You look like someone I knew," she said carefully. He tried to joke. "A celebrity." "A prayer," she said. Then she turned away to sell water to a driver who was flagging frantically. That night, she opened her locket and held it to the dim bulb. The photo was old and grainy, but the feeling was sharp as glass. She had promised God she would forgive before she ever asked to be known. Still, her heart ached with the shape of a question. Could mercy and truth live in the same room? She went to the clinic where she had given birth many years ago. The building had changed hands, but a retired nurse still lived nearby. After 2 visits and a gift of yam, the nurse remembered a frightened girl, a rich family car, and a baby with a moon-shaped mark. "Your boy would be a man now," the nurse said. Some stories take time to turn into names. Back at the market, Mama Neen watched Arinze lift crates and joke with the boys. He had the young man's swagger still, but it was melting into something quieter. She looked for cruelty and kept finding awkward kindness. That evening, she said, "Sit." She opened the locket. "I had a son taken from me. He had a mark like yours." He stared at the photo, then at her. "That could be anyone." "True," she said. "But my heart recognized you before my eyes did." He stood up too fast, the room spinning with anger, grief, and disbelief. "I'm not your," he couldn't finish. He left the room, the door banging behind him, the locket's thin chain swaying like a clock that refused to stop. He didn't sleep. In the morning, he drove straight to Ikoyi, stormed into his father's study, and shut the door. "Did you take me from my mother?" Chief Damien looked old, the way only truth can age a man. He gestured to a chair. "Sit." "I'm standing." The chief folded his hands. "I was young. My father hated the idea of me marrying a girl without a name that opened doors. When she got pregnant, I wanted to run with her. I was weak. They forced her out after birth, gave her money to disappear. I told myself I would fix it later. Later never came." "What is her name?" "Necker." The room tilted. Arinze put a hand on the desk. The chief continued, voice rough. "I have looked for her, off and on. I found nothing. I buried my shame in work and raised you with everything money could buy and nothing it could not." Silence burned. Finally, Arinze whispered, "She sells water on the bridge." The chief closed his eyes, grief crossing his face like a shadow. "Then God has brought judgment and mercy to our gate at the same time." He returned to the market, jaw tight. "If what you said is true, why didn't you find me?" he blurted. She didn't flinch. "With what power? I had one name and a memory. Your father's world had gates taller than truth." He wanted to argue, to pick holes, to keep his heart safe. Instead, he sat down. "If I am your son, I've been terrible to you." "Yes," she said softly. "But pain makes a person grow crooked. God can straighten bones." He lowered his head. "I'm sorry. I forgave you the day you spilled my water," she said. "Forgiveness is a seed you plant before you need shade." They sat a long time without speaking. When she reached out and touched his cheek, he didn't pull away. The touch was small and still, like the first drop of rain before a storm that heals instead of harms. When he left that night, he carried two things, a bag of sachet water and a name for his ache. With the truth breaking open old ground, another problem reared up. The company charges weren't fading. A quiet lawyer friend sent him redacted documents, signatures that weren't his, approvals done at night, funds routed through shells that shielded the real hand. Checker. Arinze studied timestamps, cross-checked emails, and found a pattern. Where he had been, Checker had acted. Where he had refused, Checker had forged. It wasn't just greed, it was a plan to shove him out while smiling politely. He took the file to his father. The chief stared at the evidence, face set. "I built this house and let snakes sleep by the fire." "We can fix it," Arinze said, surprising himself with the steady sound of his own voice. "Not with shouting," the chief replied. "With clean light." They called for an independent audit and placed the findings before the board. Checker denied, smiled, threatened lawsuits. The board split. Investors panicked. The deal paused. Arinze walked out of the meeting, phone buzzing with reporters. He didn't answer. He drove to the bridge and found his mother. He told her everything, and for the first time since the scandal began, the panic in his chest loosened. Truth, he was learning, is a hard pillow but it lets you sleep. He wrote the words himself and stood on the same bridge at noon. Cameras gathered. Cars slowed. Hawkers formed a circle, cautious and curious. "My name is Arinze Okafor," he said. "I behaved like a fool. I insulted people who work harder than I ever did. I am sorry." Murmurs, then quiet. He raised a tray of water. "Today, all water from me is free. Not for show, but because I have received more than I deserve." Reporters shot questions. He answered some and ignored the rest. He refused to say his mother's name. That was their story to protect. Instead, he spoke about policy, hawkers' safety, access to shade and clean kiosks, microloans that didn't trap the poor in interest chains. He announced a fund from his personal assets, not the company. The internet did its wild thing, memes, arguments, praise, suspicion. But on the bridge, real people drank cold water in fierce heat and nodded once. A tiny shift began, the kind that cannot be faked because it lives in daily life, not on a screen. While lawyers wrestled in conference rooms, Arinze sweated in the sun. He helped set up vendor sheds with reflective roofs, arranged first aid boxes, and hired 2 retired traffic wardens to teach safe crossing. He learned the names of babies and the price of onions. He watched his mother sit with a teenager who had stolen from her. Instead of police, she offered a broom and a chance to return the money slowly. "We clean what we can," she told the boy. "The rest, God will handle." At night, Arinze studied the audit files. He found phone numbers, times, a careless signature here, a crooked invoice there. He traced them to check as allies and delivered quiet tips to the authorities. No drama, just facts. He started sleeping better. Not because problems were gone, but because he was walking in one direction with his feet and his mouth saying the same thing. When pride tried to talk, he gave it a smaller chair. The board met again. Evidence piled high. Checker's mask slipped. He shouted, accused, and finally swung a fist that landed on a table instead of a face. Security escorted him out. The company stock dipped, then steadied as the audit findings went public and the prosecution team took over. Chief Damien resigned as chairman, hands shaking, voice rough. "I led well in profit and poorly in love. I will spend my days repairing the second." Reporters turned to Arinze. "Will you take over?" "No," he said. "Not now." He recommended a seasoned COO with no family ties, a woman who had kept departments alive without noise. Some investors blinked in surprise, then nodded slowly. He drove from the boardroom straight to the market and bought oranges from a woman who had once filmed him in scorn. She laughed and refused his money. "You are learning," she said. He squeezed an orange into his mouth, juice sharp and sweet. For the first time, wealth felt less like a stage and more like a tool. In a quiet corner of the market, he knelt in front of Necker. "I can't give you back the years," he said, "but I can start calling you what you are to me." She put her hand on his head. "Stand up, my son." He stood, eyes wet. They talked about small things at first, food, sleep, work, because big love often walks in on little feet. Later, he took her to a clinic for a full checkup. He bought her new slippers she refused to wear anywhere fancy and a radio she played softly at dawn. He invited her to the house. She went only when he promised the visit would be short. At the gate, staff stared. The chief met her at the door and lowered his head. "I wronged you," he said. "If you hold anger, I will not blame you." She looked at his trembling hands and said, "I held it for years. It made my back heavy. I dropped it." They sat together, the three of them, not as a fairy tale ending but as people who chose to tell the truth and keep breathing. Repair took calendars, not headlines. Arinze set up a cooperative for street vendors with saving circles and bulk buy discounts. He hired accountants who spoke plain English in Yoruba and Igbo, so meetings didn't feel like exams. He partnered with a new COO to review every unit at the company for fairness and waste. At home, he visited rooms he had ignored, staff quarters, kitchens, security posts. He raised wages and reduced fake perks that looked good on paper but meant nothing in a worker's pocket. He started attending Sunday service again, sitting at the back, leaving before the lights and cameras. With each act, pride lost ground. He learned to say, "I was wrong," without adding but. He learned to sit in silence with people who were grieving, including his father, who mourned the son he could have been. He learned his mother's favorite hymn and hummed it while stuck in traffic, a smile touching his mouth at last. He moved his mother to a modest apartment near the market and near Ikoyi, 2 doors she wanted to keep. "I won't forget where God fed me," she said. She still sold water sometimes, less for money and more for the talk, the laughter, the network of care she had built over years. He visited often. They cooked okra soup together while she corrected his knife grip. They listened to late-night football commentary. She told him stories of Enugu days, and he told her how loneliness can hide in chandeliers. One evening, she held his hand and said, "When I prayed for you, I asked God to keep you alive, even if I never saw your face again. He did more than that." He swallowed. "He also gave me back my name." They laughed easily now. Healing was not a straight line, but it had become a road they both knew how to walk without stepping on each other's toes. A year passed. The company stabilized under the new COO. The port logistics deal, once a dream, returned as a leaner, cleaner partnership. The vendor cooperative opened its first warehouse, painted bright, with a cold room for drinks and spaces for training. On opening day, Arinze stood behind the crowd while the cooperative chair, a woman who had balanced trays during pregnancy, cut the ribbon. "This is not charity," she said into the microphone. "This is structure." After the clapping, a boy ran to Arinze. "Oga, my mama say thank you." "Tell your mama I say thank you," he replied. He meant it. Gratitude had stopped feeling like a line and started feeling like gravity. That night, he drove to the bridge. The wind off the water smelled like rain. He looked at the lights on the island and the mainland and thought of how both sides needed each other for the city to make sense. He whispered, "Thank you," to no one in particular and to God most of all. News came that Cheka had been sentenced. Some family members called for vengeance. Others asked for favors. Arinze chose a steady middle. He refused to gloat. He sent a message through the lawyer, "I forgive you. I will not interfere with the law." He visited Cheka's mother, his aunt, who wept into a towel. He held her hand and stayed long enough to prove compassion is more than a statement. Then he left before pity turned into performance. Later, he asked his mother a hard question. "How do I keep my heart soft without letting people use me?" She poured tea and said, "Mercy has boundaries. Forgiveness does not mean foolishness. Keep your doors open and your windows locked." He wrote the sentence down. He started saying no more often, to friends who wanted shortcuts, to deals that smelled like smoke, to the old version of himself that loved noise more than sense. Strength did not feel like shouting anymore. It felt like choosing right when no one was clapping. On his 26th birthday, there were no fireworks, no rented yachts. He organized a medical outreach near the market instead, eye checks, tetanus shots, blood pressure tests. He moved chairs, filled water jugs, and laughed when a nurse told him he was blocking the line. His father came, thinner and calmer, and stood beside him under a small tent. "I'm proud of you," the chief said. "For the first time, I know what that means," Arinze replied. In the afternoon, they went to his mother's apartment. She brought out a small cake and said the prayer. "God, thank you for the son you returned. Teach him to keep his feet on the ground even when you lift his head." They ate, told jokes, and sang off-key. No camera crews, no speeches, just a family stitching itself together with ordinary thread. When the day ended, Arinze felt full in a way no nightclub had ever managed. Months later, at a youth program in Soyulia, he stood before a hall of students. He wore a simple shirt and none of his titles. "You've seen my mistakes," he said. "You've seen the internet make a circus out of them. Hear this, money is loud, but character is the microphone." He told them how he had mocked a woman and found a mother, how he had lost comfort and found peace, how success that crushes the poor is failure dressed up. He spoke about decisions, the kind you make when no one is watching, and how those choices carve the shape of your life. After the event, he walked to the bridge with flowers. He handed them to Mama Neen. "For all the birthdays we missed," he said. She smiled, eyes bright. "We have today." They stood there together, watching the water move under the city. His fall had not killed him. Her faith had not grown old. The richest thing in his life was no longer in his accounts. It was the simple rule he would teach his children one day: honor people, because every face might carry your answer, and every hand you lift up might be the one that lifts you too. The end. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, share. Subscribe for more stories.